Tyrion tries to compromise, Dany burns through another outfit, and there's a new ship on the horizon. Talking about Brienne and Tormund. Tonight we're discussing Game of Thrones episode 604, Book of the Stranger, on What's on the Box! Hi, I'm James.
And I'm James.
And I'm Chelsea.
And this is What's on the Box, where we discuss the latest episode of your favorite TV show.
This week, a lot of stuff happened, but most importantly, we got a Stark reunion.
Yeah!
The hug that was promised, as I've seen people referring to it.
Yeah, what I really liked about this is that they got Sansa and Jon back immediately. There was no pussyfooting around. I saw people online predicting that they would have a near miss and not actually see each other. So glad they didn't do that. It reminds me of how, with the beginning of the season, they just got Jon back alive in 2 episodes. They're not wasting our time with stuff we know is gonna happen, with stuff we need to happen. They're just giving it to us, and it's so satisfying.
The near misses really worked earlier in the series run with Sansa and Arya, but at this point, it just would have been frustrating and bad storytelling. It's better to propel the plot forward and get them together, and we get some really great Sansa stuff as a result.
I like how easy it is, too, to buy that relationship, because in the beginning of the show, we never really see those two interact with each other. I think they interact the least out of all the Stark kids.
Definitely, Jon has relationships with all the other Stark kids that are shown. He has that moment with Arya where he gives her needle. He's obviously close to Robb. He gives Bran advice right off the bat, but him and Sansa never really interact. And in the books, whenever she thinks about him, it's actually kind of negative. It kind of takes after Cat.
Yeah, it definitely follows more in Catelyn's footsteps, where Sansa really thinks of Jon as other, and it's only through her absence from family that I think she realizes that he is a Stark, he is part of their family, he is someone that she truly cares about, and that really comes out in that scene that they have together at the fire with the soup.
Where she's asking him to forgive her and just demands that he forgive her, and it's just so good to see them together. It's so natural.
And it was good soup.
I think my favorite part about this development, though, is Sansa finally taking charge in her storyline, even in lieu of Jon, because she's the one who's like, hey, we have to march on Winterfell.
I think Sansa was evoking a lot of Catelyn in that scene. The scene where she finishes reading the letter.
I think that that's a good example of one of the themes that I think came out during this episode, in that it was an episode with a lot of women trying to take control of their situations in various ways.
I completely agree. I think that starts with Sansa demanding that Jon forgive him, and it just picks up from there.
Yeah, to various levels of success, because like we saw with Osha and her methods of taking action, they didn't work.
It was my least favorite part of the episode. It just felt egregious. Like, we get Ramsay's psychopath. What did we get from that scene?
I think all it did was tie up a loose end of having Osha alive. I just think what's frustrating is that Osha is played by a great actress, and she's a great character. And we have her come back in this season only to be disposed of that quickly. It's just, why bring her back at all? If the Umbers really are Bolton loyalists, why didn't they just kill her and give Rickon to Ramsay?
For me, it felt like a way for the writers to kind of get out of that corner that they worked themselves into, because I think they realized they needed to get Rickon to Winterfell, but Osha was with Rickon, and Osha's not just gonna leave Rickon, so they figured, okay, we'll bring them both to Winterfell and just have Ramsay kill Osha.
And I get that if the Umbers had said they killed her off screen, all of us would be like, I don't think she's really dead. So it does give us finality.
It's still frustrating.
It could have been a bad plan.
It's poorly done if that's the case.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to make up excuses for the execution of plans in the show. They should be operating at the height of their intelligence, and I don't think that this plan was. It really did seem like we need to write her out.
Do we still think Great Northern Conspiracy is a thing?
I'd still like to believe that Great Northern Conspiracy is going to happen to some degree, but now I think maybe the Umbers are actually Bolton men.
I still want to believe Great Northern Conspiracy, and I think that maybe this was just a bad plan.
Do you think we'll see a scene where the Umbers are like, oh shit, our plan went wrong, Osha's dead?
I don't think we're going to learn the true motivations of the Umbers until Bastard Bowl.
Yeah, I think they're gonna turn during battle.
The result of the death of Osha is the letter to Jon. I loved the syntax of the letter. I really enjoyed the repetition of come and see. That was sadistic and serial killery. That for me really escalated the threatening nature of Ramsay more than killing Osha. I think that the repetition and the open threats to Jon, especially when 2 episodes ago we had Roose saying if you attack the Lord Commander, bad things are gonna happen, it really made him as crazy and as threatening as I think we've seen him, and it did it in a way that was less overt than stabbing Osha in the neck.
I didn't pick up on this myself, so I can't take credit for it, but the repetition of come and see is from the Book of Revelations. It's like as each seal is opened in the Book of Revelations.
Because Ramsay's a devil.
Yeah.
Subtle.
Yeah, I'm pretty done with Ramsay.
I think the show is too, but we'll have to wait until the finale to see it.
I hope that we don't see Ramsay for a few episodes.
That's not gonna happen.
You don't think so? What is left to do?
Kill off more loose ends?
What loose ends are left other than Rickon?
I think he's gonna kill Rickon.
I really don't want that.
Come and see.
The only way that I would be okay with killing Rickon is if he kills Rickon in front of Jon, which we don't need to see until Bastard Bowl.
So for Bastard Bowl, at Sansa's request, Jon is going to be marching on Winterfell, but it looks like he doesn't have enough men, even with Tormund ready and willing to rally all the wildlings that he can to the cause. So I think that the reinforcements are going to be coming from one Peter Baelish and the army of the Vale.
Oh man, was that a good scene.
It's so good to have him back. I'm so happy.
What does he say? That was my instinct as well.
I really love the way that he's just openly fucking with Bronze Jon Royce.
Bronze Jon is pissed.
That poor man is so emasculated.
His lord is just this pathetic little weakling that he has to sit there and smile for, and then to have Littlefinger come in and just totally play with him and threaten him with death. My prediction is that Bronze Jon isn't going to sit there and take that, and that he's going to turn on Littlefinger and try to mess up his plans. I don't think he'll be successful, because if he were, that would mean the death of Littlefinger, and I'm hoping Littlefinger lasts much longer than just this season.
No, Bronze Jon's such a goner.
He will be dead by the end of this season.
I wonder if Bronze Jon is going to be instrumental to Sansa realizing that Littlefinger did know Ramsay was a psychopath. If Bronze Jon knows that Ramsay is a sociopath, Littlefinger would surely know. So if Sansa can figure out that Bronze Jon knew this whole time, then Littlefinger did. And I wonder if he's gonna come to her aid if Littlefinger tries bullshitting his way out of it.
Or even the fact that Bronze Jon thought that Littlefinger was taking Sansa to the Fingers and not to Winterfell. Even that piece of information would be enough to set Sansa off.
By doing this, Littlefinger says he's going to rescue Sansa, but he's also fulfilling his promise to Cersei that he made last season when he told her he would take Winterfell with the army of the Vale. But the other thing he told Cersei was that he would have Sansa's head on a spike.
Well, you know he's not going to do that.
He won't do that.
Because he's so in love with Sansa.
I think Sansa's gonna have his head on a spike.
Hopefully not soon.
I don't know, I feel like they're setting that up.
I don't think that an easy death for Peter Baelish is a satisfying end to his arc. I don't think simply Sansa having Brienne kill Littlefinger or something like that is going to be good enough.
Especially because hopefully Brienne will be busy getting it on with Tormund.
That was some sexy bread eating.
I'm a little frustrated that they didn't actually exchange any words.
Oh,
No,
I
it
loved
was
that. That was so
great.
much better.
It just gave me some blue balls, all right?
The first look on Tormund's face when she rides in and he's just like, oh shit.
That's how they make women in the South? It was the same kind of frustration, though, that I had with that conversation between Brienne, Davos, and Mel, because Davos asks Mel about Shireen, and then before he can get an answer, Brienne's like, I saw it, but then she doesn't give him an answer. And then she tells them that she killed Stannis, and we don't get to see their response or their digestion of that information. And it's so frustrating to me. I've been waiting for these knowledge bombs to drop, and they dropped. I didn't get to see the mushroom cloud. In a similar vein, I'm really waiting for that conversation between Brienne and Sansa to come out, where Sansa learns that Brienne left the Hound for dead, and he was one of the few people who looked out for her in King's Landing. And I'm starting to worry that the show is just gonna brush past it and not give us that very poignant character moment, but my fingers are crossed.
I think we're gonna get it. I think they're waiting to play that card until they need it to foreshadow the eventual return of the Hound.
So another woman trying to take control of her situation is Margaery, and she had those scenes with the High Sparrow, which I'll admit I didn't really enjoy watching, but I kind of enjoy talking about.
Yeah, you made the really good point after we watched the episode for the first time about how the High Sparrow changes his tactics depending on who he's talking to.
Yeah, for instance, when he was talking to Jaime, he displayed a show of force with the faith militant surrounding them. With Cersei, he attacked her vanity with the Walk of Shame. With Tommen, he talked about his love for his mother. And now with Margaery, he tells her a story about how he used to have this lascivious lifestyle, and then he turned to the poor and the small folk because he realized they were closer to God. And the first thing we see Margaery do when she gets to King's Landing is talk to a bunch of orphans, and she really became this champion of the poor folk. So I really like that he's continuing that. He's changing his persuasion techniques depending on who he's talking to.
I love that point. I think it's a great reading of the scene, but I think that what doesn't quite work for me is the way that Margaery just kind of sits back and lets the High Sparrow talk at her. And I think it's strange that in an episode that's very focused on the women of the show taking power back from men, Margaery doesn't get a chance to really do that directly to the High Sparrow.
Well, yeah, but I think that's Margaery's tactics, is she's a very politically savvy person. And I think she knows that in this situation, she has no power, but to pretend that she's accepting his advice, to give him her word that she's going to be faithful, and then as soon as she gets to Loras, start scheming. I really like that, actually.
Yeah, and she was able to kind of recite back words from the Book of the Stranger really easily, which I think was smart on her end.
And that shows that she's listening. She is paying attention.
Something else I like about that scene too is that that the High Sparrow says something about his upbringing as a cobbler and how he would spend months and months making a single pair of shoes for rich people, and says something to Margaery to the effect of, I bet you've worn a year of someone's life on your back. And I think the High Sparrow gets off a little bit on the idea that he is jailing all of these highborn people and just wasting their time, honestly. Like, what is he really taking from Margaery right now besides time? It's time she could be using getting her husband back from Cersei's clutches.
And Cersei is actually making pretty good inroads considering where she started this season, because she turns Kevin and Olenna to side with her in her plan against the High Sparrow.
She was very Tywin-esque in that scene, almost bullying Kevin and Olenna, but with the truth behind it. I don't think it's any mistake, obviously, that the Rains of Castamere swells behind her as she is convincing Olenna to march on the faith. What bothered me, and yes, this is an episode about the women, but it does kind of bother me that Jaime is a non-character.
I was just gonna say that. Jaime has nothing to do right now, and it's something that really bugs me, because the idea of them being twins is that I think they slowly start to realize how different they are from each other, and right now we're not getting any of that, and it kind of feels like there's no point even having Jaime in those scenes.
Hopefully that changes soon and he gets his own plot instead of just reiterating what Cersei wants to do.
It really kind of regresses the character, I think. His whole journey through season 2 and 3, where he kind of owns up to who he is and becomes this more kind of emotionally bare person, it's like that never happened.
But it is a pair of siblings working together, and that actually was all over this episode. Not only do you have the Lannister twins acting as one character pretty much, but we have that scene with Margaery and Loras where they're looking out for each other. Jon and Sansa, maybe siblings, are there talking to each other and plotting together.
Yara and Theon.
Yara and Theon reunite.
That reunion is not Jon and Sansa. There's no good, warm feelings between the two of them.
Well, she makes the good point that she went to save him already and he turned it down in one of the worst scenes of season 4. But Theon does pledge his support for her to be the ruler of the Iron Islands and to come out on top of the Kingsmoot.
Kingsmoot.
Kingsmoot, motherfucker.
Save Dany, this is the most explicit vote of confidence in a woman character as leader in this episode. Margaery and Cersei are really working behind the scenes through other characters. At the end of the day, Kevin is the one who's making that decision in King's Landing about whether or not to intervene with the faith. Yara is trying to become queen of the Iron Islands, and Theon throws his support behind her. And as the eldest male heir to Baelon, that's a big deal. There was one sequence that wasn't completely focused on one of the female characters, and that was in Meereen, that was really about Tyrion.
I just have a bad feeling about Tyrion's dealings here. I think he's so used to dealing with Westerners. I think there's different codes of honor and just the cultural difference. I think his plans are gonna backfire. And that's what Missandei and Grey Worm were telling him, is like, they're not gonna uphold any end of any bargain that you make with them.
I think it's telling that the final word in that scene is from Grey Worm telling Tyrion,
they will use you.
Tyrion doesn't get to respond. And I think maybe that's foreshadowing that Grey Worm's gonna be right about that.
I did enjoy the kind of pushback that Missandei and Grey Worm give to Tyrion, even though Tyrion is on the surface providing good diplomacy. Phasing out slavery over the course of time is a fine diplomatic strategy if you're dealing with people who accept rules like that. In Westeros, there are all kinds of long agreements, taking on wards and marriage pacts and all these things that we've seen throughout the series that are long game kind of plays and succeed in Westeros. But in Slaver's Bay, everything is about the now. As soon as Dany left those other slave cities, they immediately went back to slaving. And I think that that's something that Tyrion just completely doesn't understand.
It reminded me of back when he first met Dany and he kind of got on her case about, why do you think as an outsider you can just come in and rule Westeros? You don't know anything about it, you've never been there. I think that's exactly what's happening here, and it's gonna come bite him in the butt.
That's what he's doing to Meereen. I guess we'll have to see how badly it fails. If it comes to a head in a battle this season, I'm sure it will. But in order to have a battle, you have to have an army, and Dany may have just earned herself one in this episode. I'm really happy that her plot finally went somewhere.
Yeah, stuff's happening. I just feel bad because I couldn't even get that excited about it. Because I feel like we've seen this scene a bunch of times, which I know you can argue is a motif. You just know that it's gonna go badly. You know that those forces are going to be halved somehow. We've been lifted up like this before, only to have it all come crashing down with like realism.
It was very reminiscent of scenes that we've seen before, like the season 1 finale when she walks out of Drogo's funeral pyre, or in the season 3 finale where everyone from Yunkai is praising her as Misa. Also similar to House of the Undying, or Dracarys, or her piecing out of that battle in the slave pits. Dany's stories always come to a head in these big fiery moments, and then the following season or half season is the fallout from that. And it just feels a little repetitive. But it was an awesome moment and the quintessential woman taking control of her situation. Oh yeah, and then there's also Daario and Jorah.
I think you can tell how tired the writers are of that story. This just feels like, we have to have them get from here to here. We'll try and make it funny, kind of.
I don't know why you don't just cut to them looking at Baze Dothrak. I get that you're kind of planting the seed that Jorah is sickly. That's all good cause and effect to show the effects of his grayscale beyond just the patch on his arm, but the dialogue was grotesque.
The dialogue was horrible. It was my least favorite part of this episode, including Osha's death.
I just don't think the Jorah that we all know would be cool with Daario talking about Daenerys like that. I think he would get really testy and would at least say something like, hey, that's our queen, that's weird, don't talk about her like that.
And I get that Daario was purposefully trying to antagonize Jorah for whatever reason, but he just came off as such a douche. Oh, you wouldn't be able to last the night with Dany, and I wish I'd been born in Dothraki. Lines like that are why I hated those scenes.
There's a place for levity, and there's a place where dialogue isn't natural to the world. Jon making a joke is funny because it's so out of character. Tyrion making a joke is funny because it's completely in character. But like douchey brotastic Daario just doesn't work.
But besides the Jorah and Daario stuff, I really enjoyed this episode. It was a bit quieter of an episode, not as many big things happening, but I think a Stark reunion trumps all and was so amazing to see.
Yeah, watching it a second time, I really liked this episode a lot. I think it was a very strong entry in what is shaping up to be a very strong season.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to next episode though, because we're gonna get Sansa and Littlefinger together again, we're gonna get more Bran visions, and we're gonna get the motherfucking Kingsmoot.
I still can't believe that we're so pumped for Bran and Iron Islands.
That all happens next week on episode 605, The Door, and we're kind of changing it up here on the channel. We're actually having live discussions and analysis the night of the episode, so you can come to the channel and watch us do that. It's a little less fancy, obviously no show clips, but it's immediate gratification for our millennial desires.
So come hang out with us, it's fun.
Yeah, it's just our immediate reactions to the episode, and it's a little less polished and informal. There'll be a chat.
But we'll still have a new episode of What's on the Box, probably later in the week, but don't worry, we're still here. But until then, I'm James.
And I'm James.
And I'm Chelsea.
And this has been What's on the Box!
Sansa.
Did you subscribe to the channel?
A viewer must subscribe to the channel if he wants to watch more. Who loves this channel?
Like and subscribe! You really liked this video, but there's so many other videos. Bran, subscribe!
Hey fella.